I'd like to welcome everybody. We've been doing this now since our first induction was in 2018. So we skipped a COVID year, but other than that, we've been doing them every year. This year we have 5 new members going into our Hall of Fame. All 5, it's a very diverse group, all excelled in whatever they went into as a vocation, and we're very proud of this group. It's a very humble group of people. The question I get most of the time when I talk to them is, why me? I said, well, because you did pretty good. I didn't sound good. Oh, I guess I'm back. That one down there for now. Okay, we're going to start with our first one. And this man is no longer with us. It's Master Chief Petty Officer Jerry Wallace. Most of you here, I think, probably grew up in the area or been around for a while. The Wallace name is sort of iconic in this area. Medway's had Lenny Superette since the mid-50s. That was Geraldine and Lenny Wallace, parent of Jerry. It stayed in the family. Jimmy and his wife have run it, and now Michelle and Jamie are running the business now, and I think it's probably going to go several more generations. The location has changed a little bit, but not much. Jerry didn't want anything to do with running the business. Okay, I'm sure he had his turn, and that wasn't his thing. By the time he had reached high school, he decided he wanted to do something in music, maybe acting. And when he got out of high school, he immediately joined the United States Navy, which sounds sort of strange. Why go in the service if you want to be in the Navy? Well, if you've ever heard of the Navy Band, you might know why. It's one of the foremost bands in the world. And Jerry's dream was to get in the Navy Band. And he did that and more. His first deployment was in Italy. And while he was there, he got to see most of Europe as in the fleet bands as they played around the different countries. And he came back to the States and saw most of the United States playing around different venues, different concerts and such. Eventually, in 1973, he started his final posting, and he did it from 73 to 1985. And at that point, it was his dream job. He was stationed at the Washington Naval Yard in Washington, D.C., home of the prestigious United States Navy Band. There, he attained the rank of Master Chief Petty Officer, which is as high as you can get in the service in the musical field. And he had a number of responsibilities. His duties included producing the annual Navy Yard production, serving as the public affairs officer, being the voice of the United States Navy Band, and he made a role for himself of a 200-year-old ghost known as the Old Man of the Sea. Since he was producing the whole thing, he actually made a role so that he could come in each of these productions at different times, and his job was to relate naval history. He had a get-up that he would wear every year. He had overalls with suspenders, straw hat, and a cane, and a big beard. And he'd come on. He was a great actor. I've seen write-ups in several of the local papers. This Jerry Wallace guy is quite the actor. And everybody looked for him every year. Some of the productions that they did, this was an enormous job that he had. The productions were similar to Broadway shows. And a lot of the shows, I'll name some that they did. Annie, Wizard of Oz, The Music Man. What they would do is make their own version of those. And the Navy Band would play their music, and they would sort of weave in the Navy stuff with it. It known all over the world. There were people literally every year that would come from all over the world to see this production, and Jerry was the head man, so pretty significant. He also did his own production for kids. He called it the Fantasy Train, and he designed it specifically and did the music for children, and it was totally Jerry's work. In his official capacity, Jerry worked with many professionals writing scripts for such stars as Burl Ives, Jackie Cooper. That's older people in the audience will know who I'm talking about, and the younger ones maybe not so much. Burl Ives actually sang a Jerry Wallace song in a Christmas special, nationally televised. It was a Jerry Wallace song, written specifically for him. He worked with advisors Arthur Fiedler, Julius LaRosa, and some of the admirals in the Navy, including Middendorf. Pretty impressive group of people that he rubbed elbows with. After 22 years, Jerry retired from the Navy. He was in his 40s at that time. He went back to school, got his degree in education from Washington College, a little liberal arts school in Maryland, was the valedictorian of his class. He then embarked on a teaching career, taught English and theater for several years, was involved in the community as a firefighter, member of the local Humane Society, Rails to Trails Club. Unfortunately, a heart attack caught him in his 50s, and Jerry died. He is survived by his wife Mitzi, his son Christopher, known as Topher, and his wife Danielle, and their son Liam. And Liam is following in his footsteps. He's a member of his high school marching band, I believe, if I've got that right. One of the things that, very impressive, Jerry wrote a very famous poem called I Am the American Sailor. And it's been played by several different individuals. We have Ernest Borgnine. Again, those older people know him from the Dirty Dozen or probably McHale's Navy. You younger people don't know him at all. Ernest was a very good actor, really sort of an ugly guy with a gap between his front teeth and sort of a portly build, but he was a good actor. And we have him on tape doing Jerry's poem. And we'd like to end this part with that, and then we'll get to Topher. So, my able assistant will play it. We have another one with Gregory Peck doing it. Gregory Peck was Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. For those you younger people that had that in English, you would probably recognize him.
Anyone was Atticus?
Well, Ernest, there were some reasons.
Hear my voice, America. Though I speak through the mist of over 200 years, my shout of freedom will echo through liberty's halls for many centuries to come. Hear me speak, for my words are of truth, justice, and the rights of humanity. For these ideals have I spilled my blood upon the world's troubled waters. Listen well, for my time is eternal. Yours is but a moment. I am the spirit of heroes past, present, and future. I am the American sailor. I was born upon the icy shores of Plymouth, rocked upon the waves of the Atlantic, and reared in the wilderness of Virginia. I cut my teeth on New England codfish, and I was clothed in southern cotton. I built muscle at the halyards of New Bedford whalers, and I gained my sea legs high atop the bosom of Yankee clipper ships. Yes, I am the American sailors, one of the greatest seamen the world has ever known. In my youth, with the words of Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry ringing in my ears, I went out to privateer against King George. I fought hard and well, and I died for liberty. But the pain and sorrow, the wounds of that first great war gave birth to my nation. I heard her bells of liberty ring out across the world, a resounding shout to all future generations that a new age had been born in the history of mankind. I am the American sailor, and I have since lived and died many times in my country's service. I am the American sailor, and I wear many faces. I'm a pilot soaring high across God's blue canopy, and I'm a sea bee atop a dusty bulldozer in Vietnam. I am a member of an explosive ordnance disposal team fighting terrorism in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I am a torpedo man deep beneath the North Pole. I am strong, but they were my eyes that filled with tears when my shipmates perished. And it was my heart that rejoiced when Commander Shepard broke the bonds of Earth and rocketed into space as we reached for the stars. Yes, it was I who languished in an enemy prison camp, and it was I who walked upon the moon. I am the American sailor. I am man. I am woman. My roots are in every color, race, and creed that sought this country to call it home. My heritage is now American. My standard is the outstretched hand of liberty. My watchword is prepared, and my joy is in the power of freedom. My spirit is the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. I am democracy's servant, and I will serve her honorably ever again. Today, my youth.
Fired playing?
Technical difficulty. We'll be with you in a minute. We're pretty close to the end. I think we're going to skip ahead. And at this time, if Topher would like to come up, we'll award the plaque. Sorry we had a little technical glitch there, but that was a pretty well-written poem. Great for the day.
Hi, folks, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here today. This is a great honor for me. He left us a little way too earlier than he should have. But I have wonderful, great memories of coming up here every summer and spending some wonderful times with my cousins, my aunt and uncle. It's a great privilege to be here and accept this honor. And thank you all for being here.
Could anybody see any resemblance to a Wallace with him? Or is that just me? Okay, we're going to move on from the Navy to the Air Force, I think. Thank you. All this stimulating music here. The next individual grew up in Medway. And before I get into it too much, I have to tell a story about this one. Twig's, this is twig cramp that we're going to put in. And Twig didn't tell me the story, his sister did. Twig said, "No, you're kidding." Twig had two older sisters, quite a bit older than him. And when he came along, according to his sister, Dad went out in the car, raced up and down the roads of Medway, throwing cigars at people, peeping his horn, "It's a boy! It's a boy!" I think he was happy to get a boy. Twig grew up right on the Penobscot River there in Medway, just below where the two rivers come together. His parents, Gerald and Flora, had 3 children. We just heard about the 2 older sisters, Christine and Connie. Twig went to Medway for the first 8 years of his education, and then up to East Millinocket to Schenck. He graduated in 1975. Twig is what I would call a shop rat. He loved everything shop, and that's not a bad thing. That's just what he was into. At that time, Schenck students didn't go down to Region 3. We had our own shops out where you ate today, and the adjoining area had a good shop program. He took stuff like woodworking, cabinet making, residential construction and wiring, sheet metal design and construction, machine tools and welding, and small engines with automobile engine and repair. So I would think that qualifies as a shop rat. So he wanted to know how to do things. He was a doer. After graduation, a little bit of an odd situation. You know, you ask people, what do you want to do after you graduate? Well, he wanted to be a canine patrolman. I have no idea where that came from, but that was his dream. So he went to enlist in the Marines because they had a program, canine training program. Well, he got there and they said, "No, sorry, but we're full." There happened to be an Air Force recruiter, I think in the same room. He said, "Son, we can take you over here. We have a program." So he ended up in the Air Force. He did get to train with a canine. When he got out, he ended up going with the Air National Guard as a security officer. And he did get to be a patrol officer. He had to get recertified in Maine. His military certification didn't work for him, so he had to be recertified. And he went through a whole number of different things. He had to be certified to be a police chief. He went through the Maine Criminal Justice Academy and became a chief of police. He was a Medway chief of police and the East Millinocket chief of police. He ended up a U.S. Marshal drug enforcement agent. He was an undercover agent for the MDEA for a period of time, worked as Homeland Security officer, and worked in the court system in Bangor as a security officer. So he had 47 years of law enforcement. The 20 years that we remember the most, in 1992 to 2012, Twig was our police chief here in East Millinocket during that time. Now, again, Twig's one of those guys that said, well, how come they picked me? Well, I think of a policeman now, and quite often what happens when they stop somebody for a driving infringement, and they go to the car, and they don't know when the guy rolls down the window whether he's got a shotgun or a pistol or some other kind of weapon, or they go to a domestic abuse situation and run into the same thing. They don't know when they answer the door, whether they're going to come out alive or not. It's that kind of a job. And Twig had the kind of personality that I think is extremely important in law enforcement. He's a very laid-back guy. Those of you that know him know exactly what I'm talking about. And he's the kind of guy that can walk into a situation that is treacherous and could evolve into something either very dangerous or deadly. And just by his calm demeanor, he would solve a lot of problems. They just didn't exist because he took care of it. That's just the way Twig operated. So, all of us here in this community really appreciate how Twig worked, the way he worked with all ages, kids at school, the older generation, and the workers at the mill. Twig did a good job with every part of the community. So Twig, congratulations for that. He's now living in East Millinocket with his wife Donna. He's retired. He enjoys snowmobiling, weightlifting, and target practicing. By the way, the reason we called him Twig is because that's what he looked like growing up. Okay, all of us Medway people that knew him well, he was just a little crap, a little guy, and I think everybody picked on him. But he grew up and he took this law enforcement thing seriously and spent a lot of time in the weight room. We don't make fun of him anymore. You'll see when he comes up what I'm talking about. They live with their only child, Travis. Very, very proud of Travis, who has returned to the area and is currently a physician's assistant at the clinic in Lincoln. So Twig, if you'll come up and get your plaque, please. And I think Twig said he wanted to do a long speech, so.
I think you're wrong.
You do have to say something.
I don't.
Well,
I'd just like to thank my friends, my family, especially my wife, my son, for showing up here tonight and supporting me for all those years. Thank you.
the next guy's Air Force too, but we've heard it once. So I think we'll move along. This next guy, again, graduated with the greatest class to ever go through Schenck High School. What year was that?
68.
See? I told you. Ed was our valedictorian. And we had many a battle, okay, in the classroom. It was a very competitive group, and we liked to academically fight each other. And Ed won. He ended up the valedictorian.
Not by much.
Well, hey. Ed Martin, the only child of Zelda and Harry Martin, grew up in East Millinocket and was the valedictorian of the class of '68. He was an excellent musician, played first chair clarinet, served as the band president, and marched with the band at the Cherry Blossom Festival in Washington, D.C., which was a huge event back in our day. He also played tenor sax in the jazz band and sang in the school chorus. Ed won several public speaking contests, as well as the Voice of Democracy essay, and was a member of the National Honor Society, the Student Council, and Boy State. He also was very involved in scouting, going all the way from Cub Scout to the rank of Eagle Scout. Not only did he make Eagle Scout, but he was elected to the Order of Arrows and received the prestigious Vigil honor. That's big time stuff in Scouting. After Schenck, Ed attended the University of Maine, graduated with distinction with a BA in zoology, and attended Kansas City College of Osteopathic Medicine, where he received his Doctor of Osteopathy, whatever. Upon graduation, he was commissioned a captain and went into the United States Air Force School of Aerospace Medicine. He was assigned as a squadron flight surgeon at Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota, and then at Loring Air Force Base in Maine as the Chief of Aeromedical Services. This led to his selection to the prestigious Aerospace Medicine residency at Brooks Air Force Base in Texas, which included earning a master's degree at Johns Hopkins University of Hygiene and Public Health. Also during the residency, Ed was trained to fly the T-37 jet training aircraft. Attended both Arctic and water survival schools and was certified by the Board of Preventive Medicine in Aerospace Medicine. This led to the best assignment an Air Force flight surgeon could hope to have: Chief of Aerospace Medicine at the Air Force Flight Test Center in Edwards Air Force Base in California. While there, the highlights of his assignment were directing the Air Force medical support for 24 space shuttle landings and for the civilian nonstop global circumnavigation by the Voyager in 1986. He also directed medical support for the first flight of the stealth B-2 bomber. Ed was also privileged to know and care for numerous aviation legends, including Brigadier General and Flying Ace Chuck Yeager, the first pilot to break the sound barrier. After Edwards Air Force Base, Ed held several positions and responsibilities, including Chief of Flight Medicine at Brooks Air Force Base in Texas, Chief of Aerospace Medicine for Air Training Command at Randolph Air Force Base in Texas for aviation medical support of all flying training, and Air Staff in Washington, D.C., where he was the Chief of Physical Standards for the entire Air Force in reserve setting and overseeing medical standards for over 400,000 Air Force personnel. He then returned to Brooks Air Force Base as the Deputy Director of the Aerospace Medical Directorate, holding a variety of positions as the base underwent mission changes. Ed retired from the Air Force as a colonel after 31 and a half years. As a chief flight surgeon, he amassed over 1,600 flying hours in 24 aircraft types, with his favorite being the T-38 Talon, a supersonic jet trainer. Decorations include meritorious service, Air Force Commendation, Air Force Achievement, and National Defense Service Medals, and Air Force Outstanding Unit Award, 1 oak leaf cluster, Longevity Service Ribbon, 5 oak leaf clusters, and Small Arms Expert Marksmanship Ribbon. Woo. Remember, he was 68. In retirement, Ed continued his work with Scouting, taking scouts camping more than 100 different nights, making trips from Texas to Maine to visit Acadia and climb Katahdin, and bringing venturers to visit Washington, D.C. and Gettysburg Battlefield. Ed is active in his church with the choir, the food ministry, and the Bible study groups. Ed is the parent of son John and daughter Elizabeth. He is also now the proud grandparents of 4 grandsons. Ed comes to Maine each summer and enjoys his camp and visit with his friends and family. Ed, if you come down and get your plaque, please. Remember, Ed was a good speaker.
Unaccustomed as I am public speaking. First, I'd like to thank the committee, especially Frank. Frank was after me a lot about getting stuff in. I'd also like to recognize my wife of 51 years who just passed. And for those of you that have expressed sympathy, thank you very, very much. this is a small town. This is a small school. And I think it's important that we have this Hall of Fame, not just to recognize us old people. I think it's especially important for the students of today to see that it doesn't matter where you spring up. You can do anything you want to. Get a good education, and then let the world get out of the way. You can do it. And as parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, tell the young people here they can do it. They can do it. And the key is an education. Thank you very much.
That took a lot of courage. I can appreciate very much what Ed's going through. We're all very sad, and thank you very much for the effort, Ed. It's a wonderful job. Yeah. Okay. I gotta get my composure for a second. Our next individual is Dr. Neil E. Charette. You talk about a tough start. Neil Charette started off life, his father was in the service, I think in the Korean War, in the Korean conflict. Came back to East Millinocket. Neil was 2 years old, and his sister Norma was in the womb. She hadn't been born yet. Dad got back, and after a very short period of time, had an issue with his heart and died at 23 years old, leaving a 2-year-old and a pregnant wife. Not an easy start. But Neil, and those of you that know Neil know what he's like. He persevered, he plugged along and did his thing and did it well all the way through school. He was always a very good student. He was very active in high school. Played baseball, was on the ski team, a band member, acted in the plays, worked on the yearbook, member of both the chess and French clubs. The faculty selected him for his leadership in the National Honor Society and also to represent the school at Boy State. His classmates showed how much they respected him by choosing him as a student council representative and then class president. For all his hard work, he ended up a salutatorian of his class, which wasn't quite as good as 68, but it was pretty good. Also during that time, we got another Eagle Scout here. This area, if you're not aware of it, has probably produced more Eagle Scouts than anywhere, I don't know, is there anywhere other than the state of
For its size.
Yeah, per person. Absolutely incredible program. After high school, Neil went down to the University of Maine and was in the pre-med program, which meant at the end of his college career, he had to make a decision. Am I going to go dentistry or am I going to go medicine? And he decided dentistry was the thing that made more sense for him. So once he graduated, by the way, in zoology in 3.5 years, and that includes a half a year over in Austria studying Germany, and he graduated with distinction. He then applied to dental programs, got in at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland. While he was at Maine, he ran into somebody he used to know in high school, a young lady that they had dated occasionally, Miss Teresa Bell, and they got serious about it in college, and the two got married. When he graduated from college, the two of them went off to Cleveland to get started. Now, they didn't have a couple pennies to pinch together at that point. Neil was doing his studies, and Teresa worked all the way through, even when he had his practice. This was a team effort. I think that's probably a good way to say it, and I'm sure Neil would agree. The two worked very closely. She worked as an ophthalmic assistant in Cleveland. That's somebody that does stuff with eyes. Right, Teresa? Okay. Once he graduated from dental school and passed his boards, which is a biggie, Neil and Teresa came back to Maine. Of course, you don't jump right in and start your own practice. You had to start somewhere. So he started up in Holton at an established practice where he worked for 2 years. And then he came back home to East Millinocket. He hooked up in the same building with Dr. Hamlin. And the two of them were there in the building until Dr. Hamlin retired, I guess, for I don't know how many years, but a lot. Teresa, during that time period, worked right in the office with Neil. She did the bookkeeping, and she supported Neil's philosophy of treating every patient as family. And that's key with this guy. Okay. So how many of you had Neil as a dentist? Put your hands up. Take a look. This next statement sums Neil up perfectly. His gentle demeanor and kindness were a trademark of his practice for all his 37 years. And I can attest to that. We miss you very much. Neil is retired now. He and Teresa take great joy in spending time with the families, with Ellen and Tim, their 2 kids, and the four grandchildren. And Neil sneaks off into the garage and makes some pretty damn good furniture. Congratulations, Neil. Would you come up, please?
Happy 50th anniversary also.
All right, we're going to turn it over to Neil. Let him go.
A few remarks, it won't take long, I promise. All right. Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for being here today, especially my family and former co-workers. I would also like to thank the Hall of Fame Committee for giving me this incredible honor. Being successful at anything is almost always a group effort, and my standing here today is no exception. Again, I have to thank my wife, Teresa, who was not only with me all 4 years of dental school, but also who filled in many times at the office when we were in between receptionists. And I would like to thank my 2 long-term co-workers, Therese DeBoo and Laura Jones. Therese, my dental assistant, always had a friendly and welcoming way that put people at ease. And Laura, my dental hygienist, was always professional and gave good advice to many patients. Soon after graduating from dental school, we had to decide where to live. It didn't take long to know where my heart was, and we came back to our hometown. For me, there was no other choice, thanks to the many of you who chose to trust me with the care of your dental needs. I would like to encourage any young people here to consider becoming a dentist. It's easy to see that more dentists are sorely needed, especially those who live in and remain in the communities they serve for their entire careers. Dentistry can be very rewarding. Every day I felt like I had accomplished something, alleviating pain, preventing a problem from getting worse, or treating an infection. Solving a problem in a short period of time makes dentistry a satisfying career. If you are the parent or the grandparent of a student, please encourage them to consider becoming a dentist. In closing, I would like to give you this advice, and I know you've heard it before, but it's worth repeating. Believe in yourself and don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it, because you can do it. You can achieve your goals with hard work, perseverance, and the support of people who care about you. The fear of failure is a deterrent that keeps many from trying. To young people in the audience, don't let this be you. Just go ahead, you can do it. Again, thank you for being here today.
Is that it? Oh, no, wait a minute. I think there's somebody else. More bad news, Jim. The last one is a guy that I know very well, and a lot of you do as well. How many people here had Jim Willard in school? Wow, look at that. You had more people than he had in his dentistry practice. But it was pretty close, Neil. They didn't have a choice, so it did. Oh, my goodness. Jim Willard grew up in Orono with his adopted parents, Dick and Esther, and his sister Joy. I talked to Jim about this part of it, the adoptive part, and it goes along a little bit with some of the stuff we've been hearing. A lot of what we do is to try to encourage kids to believe that they can do things. And oftentimes kids who are adopted feel a little out by themselves. You know, how come I didn't have, parents like everybody else? And we think it's very important that some kid someday can go by and read Jim's thing and say, wow, this guy did pretty darn good and he was adopted. Maybe I could do the same. So that's why I made a special point of it with Jim. The adopted parents picked a pretty good one here. Jim, do we have any Orono people here, by the way? Anybody make it from Orono? Yeah. Wasn't anybody else came up, John? Okay. Who knows? Okay. Jim had a different life than what we knew. Okay, we looked at him as a big fuzzy bear, mild-mannered guy. He actually was a hell of an athlete. A two-time state champion basketball player, third-year runner-up. And he was an all-turning player. And I just found out in this whole thing that he wasn't a guard, he was a forward center, correct? Little Jimmy Willard, who'd thought it? Huh? He was a crafty guy. You guys that play tennis all know that. He also played on a state championship football team and was all-state first team in football. He also was a pretty good tennis player. I believe 2 times runner-up to the state champion. Is that correct, Jim? Well, close enough. Close enough. Those of you, again, that play tennis knew Jim was a pretty good tennis player. His high school, Orono, recognized Jim as one of their greatest athletes, and he has been inducted into their Sports Hall of Fame. So this isn't his first go-around. After high school, Jim went on to the University of Maine, and true story, met the woman next to him on the first day. True story, right? And they haven't been apart ever since. He and Franny, first day. Talk about true love. He also happened to go on to earn a degree in entomology. So, anyway, Jim and Franny came to East Millinock in 1968. I was just leaving. I just graduated with a great class of 68. So Jim missed us, but he did okay with the rest of the crew. He started in the fall of 68, teaching biology, and Franny started in 2nd grade. They originally didn't plan to stay in East Millinocket very long, but they fell in love with the area and the people and became a fixture for 30 years. Later in his career, Jim took some time off from coaching, went back to school, got his MED in science education and a CAS in educational administration, which qualified him to be a principal or a superintendent. I never did those two, but it also qualified him to teach at the college level. And he taught advanced degrees in microbiology, anatomy, physiology through the University of Maine, Husson, EMCC, to adults that wanted to further their education and go into nursing or whatever. Jim was an outstanding biology teacher. He tailored his courses to the needs and interests of all of his students. He made sure that his college prep students had a solid background so that they could be competitive if they went into a medical field, scientific research, ecological studies, or became biologists. He also was just as good with his kids that weren't going into a science field, with kids that struggled. And I happen to know that because I started here after I graduated from college. My first job was back here coaching. I got stuck with Paul Jamo, and we had some pretty good ball players on that team other than Paul. But so I coached, and I was a substitute teacher for a while and lived at home so I could earn some money. And I would come to school every day, and some days I got paid, and other days I went down to Willard's class, and we did some biology together, and he showed me how he did it. And I was impressed, okay? And he said to me one day, he said, "Davis, you thinking about doing this for a living? So maybe you ought to have student teaching," because I never had that. I was a biology major in college. So he arranged student teaching for me. So I student taught underneath Jim. And I modeled my whole biology career after Jim Willard. I liked what he did. I liked how he did it. He had a way in the classroom that you just don't find. He just was wonderful with everybody. We had one of Jim's kids who wrote us a letter, a kid that struggled in school, had a hard time with the book learning, and was oftentimes uneasy in school. It just wasn't a comfortable situation for them. She said, "Except Mr. Willard's biology class." She said, "Jim would always come over and say hello to me, ask me how I was doing, ask me if I needed anything." She said he was the only one in high school that made me feel that way. She said, and when I graduated from high school, she said I would see Jim in the grocery store, and he would come over and say hi, and instead of turning around and walking away like most people do, he would have a conversation with me. "How are you doing now?" And that's the way Jim was. Every kid he had in tennis, we heard it over and over again from tennis people. Didn't matter what the level was. Jim wanted you to do the best that you could do at the level you were at and strive to get better. But he didn't favor the guys that were the big-time tennis players versus the guys just starting in. You know, he was good with everybody, and I think everybody would agree with that. Anyway, moving on. Jim made his biology classes fun and interesting for all of his kids by taking trips to the coast of Maine to investigate tidal pools, climbing Mount Katahdin with him, collecting and photographing insects, taking canoe trips, making duck boxes, and putting them out, burning up snow sleds in the process. Some of Jim's most impressive projects with his students included tracing Thoreau's journey through Maine, researching the history of the East Branch of the Penobscot River, and doing a multi-year study of the ecological changes in the burned area of Mount Katahdin and Baxter State Park after a major fire. He also took kids on trips to Prince Edward Island, Costa Rica, Ecuador, and the Galapagos Islands. Jim was also responsible for bringing the sport of tennis to Schenck High School. Which brings me to this. Nobody played tennis when I was growing up. I knew one kid who had a tennis racket. And I found out as we were doing this, Bob Bushett. Where's Bob Bushett? Where? There he is. He had a tennis racket too. And he was the one that played the other guy, right? Bobo. Seriously, there wasn't anybody in town that played tennis. There really wasn't. I don't know if they even had nets up. But Willard came in '68. He started the tennis team in '73. And he coached for about 20 years. Worked the last part with Barry Goddard. I guess they worked both ends. You know, sometimes Jim was the head honcho, sometimes Barry was. But they brought a sport that people could play for the rest of their lives. You know, not this football, basketball stuff that, you know, long since has gone by. It was something they could enjoy, and a lot of these people that play tennis are still playing it today. And that's because of Jimmy Willard. Jim and Franny are retired now and living in North Pole, Alaska.
I even know what that is.
Yeah. That's where you go to get your postage stamped, so you can send it to your relatives saying you've been to the North Pole.
I did Arctic survival. So
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, he's got a daughter up there, Julie, and her family, and they're producing the next generation. So we're into great grandchildren, right? 2 greats? Yeah, 3 of them, but 3 great grandchildren now. Prior to moving to Alaska, they lived up in Sherman, where they lived near their daughter Lisa and helped raise Lisa's family. So I have a letter that I want to read to you about Jim and what he meant to the tennis program. This is from longtime athletic director and Hall of Fame member at Schenck High School, Ron Marks. Ron says, "It's an honor for me to endorse Jim Willard for any kind of special recognition he may receive. To me, as an athletic director, he was a dream coach. He was the perfect one to take over the new tennis program at Schenck. Not only was he highly knowledgeable about the sport, he was a great leader, he was dependable, a great teacher, and highly respected. It was easy to let him run the program the way he thought best. His many winning seasons helped confirm his place as one of the top coaches in the state of Maine. In fact, I think I had the best tennis coaches in the state of Maine with Jim and his excellent assistant, Barry Goddard." Now, if we could have Mr. Willard come up and receive his plaque, and maybe we could find out something about this fish. I'm dying to hear about this fish, this Jimbo.
You 11? Yeah. Some stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna get to. It's not gonna be a long night, all right, promise. First thing I'd like to do is to thank the committee for this honor. I truly appreciate it, and I'm humbled by the whole thing. I'd like to thank my family and friends for being here. My wife, Frances, my sister Joy, niece, Janie, my daughter Lisa, and a couple of early students, Marlene. You got white hair. You know why I have this white hair from? All right. And some of my very first classes. Kim Smith is here. I don't know where she is right now. I lost track of her. There you go. Is that she was in the very first class I ever taught, the first year. I think as was Neil in my very first class. It was a wonderful opportunity for me. East Millinocket was a very different place in 1968. We made Ripley's, believe it or not, because all the houses were on the same side of the road. That was one of our claims to fame. We also had the fame as the richest town in the state of Maine due to the production of the mill and our small population and the way that they did things. As far as the school goes, we didn't have a school bus.
we rented school buses, but it wasn't all that common back then. Our basketball teams, I don't know about the 68 team, but they all went on Bangor Rustic style or Greyhound style buses. I mean, they didn't go on the regular type school buses. Another thing we had, all these Millinocket students went home for lunch. You didn't stay at school. You had an hour and a half lunch. You got out at 11:30 and you were back at 1 o'clock. Well, how about the Medway and Woodville kids? Well, they brown bagged. That was it, okay? The faculty here was very strong, as strong as any school. They deserve recognition, they really do. They were good. For me, it was a tremendous opportunity to observe and learn from these dedicated professionals, and I sincerely thank them. They should be appreciated and they should be remembered, which I'm going to do. That with Alden Colby and Wayne Danforth were in the shop. Tremendous programs. Margaret Gillis and John Giffen were in the phys ed department. Margaret Gillis ran the phys ed department and about everything else too. We had Steve Hagan in guidance. We had Andy Hopkins, Larry St. Peter, and John Hackett in history and government. A very experienced and dedicated crew. Tom Cahill was a driver education man. We had Dean Parker, Keith Lowry, Gary Clendenning in science. We have Bruce Lally in math, Carl DeFrederico, Juanita Presley, and Emmett Stevens in business. Kay Nesbitt was a home ec teacher. Ted Parkhurst was outstanding math man. Ted Parkhurst would teach algebra. Kids would get out of study hall to go back and listen to his presentation. They would be standing in the doorway. The classroom was full, they'd be standing in the doorway just to listen to Ted present things. We had Harry Rush, languages, and Ellen Arbo in the library, which was taken over by Tom Tatu eventually, and thank you and Carmen for being here, Tom. We had Bob Neal and Tom Rowe, right there. Boy, did I learn stuff from Tom Rowe. I can tell you that, okay? Once again, I thank you for this honor. It has been a privilege and a pleasure to serve the communities that make up Schenck High School. Thank you.
Get your 50-50 tickets out. We need an honest person to draw it, and we got stuck with Jim. Okay, the winner's gonna get $73. So, hey. Thank you, Jim. The number is 960-965. Who's got it? 960-965. That's all right, I'll just keep it all. 960-965. Well, I guess we have a decision to make. Huh? Yeah, you better check. 960-965. Is that Mancini?
Yes, her husband is the one that has organized Summerfest this year. And he could not be here, and they're from New York, Long Island. Her next door neighbor come to find out today, when they were in Long Island. But she came up to see what this was all about, because he's right running Summerfest, and he had no idea what the Hall of Fame was about. She said, "Oh, I'll just buy one of these tickets."
Yeah. Well, we're lucky she'll give it back to us. Great, great. We got something we can put it to it. That wasn't anything, right?
It was crazy.
Was that's it? Is that it? That the same one?
Oh, I just gave.
Yeah, you did.
Did you?
960, 965?
All right, it was.
That's how we make all that money. Yeah, so she's here, so she gets the 75, okay? Yeah, we had the end of one roll and the beginning of the second one, so I guess we had some duplicates. Sorry about that. Okay. Usually at this time we go home. Oh, wow, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now, again, we usually go home at this point because we've inducted all 5. However, this is all Paul Jamo's fault again. It absolutely is. We've got some extra work to do, and Willard thought he was getting out of this easy. I heard the rumors as you guys listened. What the hell is Willard doing in North Pole, Alaska? Did everybody say that, or was it just my imagination? Most of you. Well, we looked into it. That's what Jimmy Willard's doing in Alaska. Julie? She didn't have anything to do with that. All right. Well, we are going to keep you a little bit longer, and it does have to do with that guy. We've got, we did a deep dive into Willard's life, and some fun stuff here. First of all, we've got some information about Jim from the people that grew up on Forest Avenue in Orono. And let me read some of the, I'm not going to read all the stuff that they wrote, just little clips. Sally Smith McFawn. Jimmy was one of my many, many Forest Avenue kids. He was the older brother of my dearest childhood friend, Julian. Jim has many wonderful attributes: handsome, kind, athletic, smart, and well loved by his family and many friends. But there is one attribute not many people knew about. Jim was one hell of a musician. He could rip the piano right off the floor. At lunchtime at my house, he just let it go, not only with the piano, but also his trombone. He and his dad used to go out and play the trombone for the neighbors. Larry Taylor. Remember Larry? Larry says, if memory serves, and these are old people, during home basketball games, instead of going into the locker room with the coach and teammates at halftime at some of the home games, Jim would go up on the stage, sitting in his sweaty basketball uniform, playing in the Orono High School band. The fans loved it, and you could see Jim enjoyed the humor. He's forgotten. He wasn't. Let's see, Linda Sabin Wade. Ooh, I heard she was a pretty girl, and this was before Frank. And the word I got from somebody else from Orono says, yeah, Willard was really interested in tennis, but he said, I grew up across the street from Jimmy Willard on Forest Avenue in Orono. One day, when I was in high school, Jim asked if I would show him how to play tennis. My parents played tennis, and I thought I was a pretty good player. We biked over to the UMO campus, and I showed him the rudiments of the game. A few days later, we went back to play a set, and he beat me badly. Humiliation. Bob Perry played football with Jim. It wasn't fun tackling Jim Willard during Orono High School football practices. Some of his cohorts that Jim taught with included Tom Rowe, and Jim mentioned his expertise in plumbing, and I'm not going to go into that one. I just thought I'd remind you. Tom says, I didn't know the gentle giant could play tennis. So we went over to the courts, me thinking this is going to be easy. How good could this roly-poly guy be? And the tennis players were all laughing up there because they know. He said, the first serve bounced in front of me and went over my head. He said, I finally figured out his topspin, and then he started serving the ball that didn't bounce up. He said, I don't think I ever won a game. And again, anybody who's played tennis against Jim, you know that. Mark Scally. Mark said, Jim was an accomplished pianist. So when I got my grand piano, Jim would come over on several occasions, and we would sit down and play Beethoven symphonies arranged by Franz Liszt for 4 hands, piano 4 hands. That's how good he is at piano. George Hanlon, a buddy of mine. George says, I got to know Jim during our 8th grade trip to Panama and Alaska. He said, it didn't take long to realize a few key things about him. He has a fabulous sense of humor. He loves being around kids, and he's an incredible educator. Jim brings energy, warmth, and laughter wherever he goes. Lana Robinson taught with Jim up in Sherman when he went up there. Lana said, for a few years at Katahdin High School, I had the privilege of working with Jim. He was a teacher who liked his students and saw the best in them. He treated them with respect. Jim's enthusiasm for learning was contagious. Terry Duffy, also from Sherman, wrote of Jim, he was a very knowledgeable teacher. He was overqualified for his job. He could work with every level of student, from the best and the brightest to the ones who struggle to pass. No. Turn your hearing aid up. Was that a serious comment? No, I guess not. Jim's neighbors. We have 4 of them here from Prince Edward Island. Nancy said, I still remember the first time I met Jim. It was at Brudenell Golf Course. Not long after that, I met his wonderful wife, Fran, at the beach. It didn't take long for both of them to become honorary Little Ponders, a title not given lightly, but wholeheartedly deserved. They fit right in, as if they had always been part of our circle. Jim, we're very proud of you. Congratulations on this well-deserved honor. In my quest to find out some stuff about Jim, I went to visit his neighbors in Sherman. One of his neighbors is an Amish family, and I brought them a self-addressed envelope to see if they would like to write some stuff about Jim. When I went to the home, they were a little intimidated because they didn't know who the heck I was. Thought I was selling encyclopedias or something. And anyway, I knocked at the door, and Mrs. Yoda came to the door. And I explained, I'm here to see if you have anything you'd like to say about Mr. Willard, Jim Willard. There were 3 kids in the room, This girl beside me, her eyes got about that big. She said, oh mama, it's Fran and Jim. Of course we'll write something about them. So the mother says to me, would you like me to do this now? And I said, well, you could, or you could just write it and put it in the envelope and drop it in the mail tomorrow if you want. And the little girl piped in, she said, Mama, we gotta wait for Daddy and the boys to get home, because they'll want to write too. So the Amish neighbors love Jim. This next one, when Jim first came to Schenck High School, before he was did you teach something besides biology? Or were you general science? But Dick Groves is still teaching biology, right? Well, this particular one came from a girl named Cheryl Butts, who had an incredible story. Cheryl was a severe diabetic. Her father dropped dead when she was a junior in high school. And her mother sort of lost it. So Cheryl was pretty much on her own. She poured herself into the books, ended up the valedictorian of her class. And Dick Groves at one point says, Cheryl, what are you going to do after high school? And she said, I don't know. I maybe could be a nurse or a secretary or something. And Dick said to her, why don't you become a doctor? Girls in the early 70s didn't even think about becoming doctors. It basically was unheard of. And Jim was in on this. Jim actually helped her pick out schools, colleges. He went through the catalogs, picked out several different schools with strong science programs that would give her a very solid background to go into medicine after her undergraduate studies. And she ended up at Mount Holyoke, and went on to become a doctor. And she wrote, I'm going to cry on this one. The wife's over there going, right? Where is she? Mr. Willett showed a confidence in me that I could handle the programs. Boy, did I need that. I thank you, Mr. Willett, for your patience and your guidance. I feel God provided you to fill the hole left by my father when he died.
She's also in our Hall of Fame.
Yes, she's in our Hall of Fame as well. This next one actually came from Franny's class first. This young man says, I remember our class went on an open Myrick field trip to the Willett house to see the owl that Mr. Willett was caring for. He says, for an 8-year-old, walking into Jim's bird sanctuary felt like stepping into an episode of Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. He said, a year later or so I got up one day and went out. It was one of the first days of summer vacation. He said, I discovered a young bird that had fallen out of the nest and broken its wing. He said, I knew exactly who could help. So I carefully placed the bird in a shoebox, got out my bike, and headed for Willard's. Unfortunately, balancing the bird in a shoebox and riding a bicycle at 9 years old is not a good combination. He said the bike went flying, and so did the bird. Not really flying, but crashing. He said I took a tumble. The shoebox landed on the ground along with me. So after dropping off the now slightly more injured bird with Mr. Willard, I went to the hospital with my dad and received a cast of my broken arm. Now the kicker, a few weeks later, I received a letter of appreciation from the Maine Audubon Society, thanking me for helping the bird and wishing me a speedy recovery. Mr. Willard had reached out to them to inform them of the accident, which was a thoughtful gesture on his part. Stacy Nesbitt writes, Mr. Willard led a trip for a group of kids my senior year to the Galapagos Islands. It was like nothing you could ever imagine. It was the most amazing adventure. So a lot of kids never even leave the state of Maine. But he showed a small group of us what the world had to offer. And I still have a strong love for travel and new places today. The next one is from a revered coach in the state of Maine. a guy named Peter Murray, who is a basketball Hall of Famer in the state. Mr. Willard was a true mentor whose guidance and example left a lasting impact on my life. Coach Willard believed in me even when I doubted myself, pushing me to grow not only as an athlete but also as a person. His influence played a key role in my decision to pursue a teaching career aligned with those same principles and ultimately sparked my own desire to coach tennis and pass on what he so generously gave to me. I am deeply grateful for his lasting influence on who I am today. Shauna Land, who was the valedictorian of the class of 1996. I don't know if that's her married name or maiden name. Maiden name. He says, the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. And I want to know. This is all due to that first step into his classroom. Mr. Willard is a legend in my household, as my children have heard every story. And I am eternally grateful to him for igniting my passion for science. Another young man, who, like a lot of us as teenagers, made a mistake. And this is the way that Jim handled it. The kid says, my low point was when I got kicked off the tennis team for being out drinking the night before our Eastern Maine tournament match. I didn't see Coach Willard until a few days later when he held me back in class. Once again, he put that big hand on my shoulder, looked me directly in the eye, and said, do better. That's all he said, do better. And the young man says, I like to think that I have since that day. Some of the family stuff, quickly. Granddaughter Hannah. The digestive system. Summers in Maine. Spiders all come to mind when I think of you, Pops. I vividly remember calling you when I had a middle school biology test coming up, struggling with learning the digestive system. After the phone call, I've never forgotten it. But there are so many things I have never forgotten about you. I remember learning not to fear spiders when you found a beautiful one and wanted a picture of me with it. I remember getting up early to go to school with you and getting to see why you were so loved by your students. Granddaughter Sarah says, I enjoy thinking about all the fun times I've had with my grandpa and the lessons he taught me. When I was little and he would come visit us in Alaska, we'd do all kinds of things together. He'd take me to the water park and float on the lazy river with me. We would sit around talking about biology. So I learned all the bones in the body. And I could ask him any question I wanted. Granddaughter Laura says, Pops, there's a lot of different things I could say about you. I remember visiting Canada when I was about 9 years old. We went golfing. You taught me how to play tennis, played at the beach, and you took me out on the ocean in your kayak. One thing I can always count on is that you always show up, anytime, anywhere, if you need it. Daughter Julie says, I was rocking my grandson to sleep and started thinking about what to write. I cannot think of a more extraordinary man to honor. You embody what every dad, husband, son, brother, grandfather, great-grandfather, and teacher dreamed to be. This next one comes from one of the best tennis players that Jim ever had, Mark Farmer. Is Mark in the audience, any chance? He's got kids in AAU basketball. Weekends are no longer his anymore. He says, it's easy to trace aspects of my career in the life sciences to the strong roots that were established in Mr. Willard's biology classes. His labs were impactful, and he did well to blend scholarly teaching while keeping the content enjoyable and enriching. His enthusiasm to share his deep knowledge made him one of my favorite teachers throughout my years of education. On the tennis court, Mr. Willard was a fantastic coach, and his ability to demonstrate techniques and concepts strengthened the message to his athletes. He elevated our team to an annual contender in Eastern Maine. Johnny Boynton, Another one of the tennis players says, I also had Mr. Willard as a tennis coach. Mr. Willard was a really good tennis player. He made it look so easy. So when he gave advice on how to improve the game, I listened. In the summer, Mr. Willard took us all to tennis tournaments all around the state. We often went in Mr. Willard's little Volvo car, and he was a bit of a prankster. He said on one trip, David Collingsworth had taken a nap. So Willard slowed the car way down. He said, I'm gonna hit the brakes, and when I do, you all scream. He says, I will never forget the look in David's big blue eyes. Tim Surratt said, Coach Willard loved the sport of tennis, inspired his athletes to love the game and strive to improve their skills. I remember how excited he would be for me when I was playing my best tennis and experiencing that state of flow he would often speak about. Mr. Willard, thank you for everything you've done for me and for the thousands of people you influenced throughout your career. Sam Civiello says, Mr. Willard was in a class by himself as an educator, simply because of who he was. A humble, loving man who clearly, frog in my throat, who clearly enjoyed every day at Schenck High School. He knew biology inside out and loved conveying the information. He made learning so much fun with trips in the woods or in the Baxter State Park. He loved the living beauty around him and helped us all appreciate it with his boyish enthusiasm. I like that. The same goes for tennis. He was an outstanding player and was so kind, patient, and absolutely demanding as a coach. I don't ever recall him raising his voice. But when he spoke, everyone listened because he always provided helpful information, always encouraging and positive. He's one of a kind. The next one said nice stuff about Jim, and I skipped it to go right to Franny. This one's about Franny. From a wonderful young man, our Lieutenant Colonel Jeremy DeVoe. Mrs. Willard, some of my first memories of school are from your second grade class. You made me feel seen and special in a way that has never left me. I remember how you found ways to challenge me, how you took the time to understand what I needed, even at that young age. It made a difference. You made a difference. You can cry if you like. Blake Danforth said, I remember those occasions when Mr. Willard decided that he wanted to talk to me about something. While the topics would vary, one thing that was always consistent would be him placing that big hand of his on the back of my neck. And with his incredibly strong grip, he would very casually turn my head so that our eyes met while we were talking. I was never bothered by this. I always look back on these conversations fondly. It was simply his way of letting me know that he felt the talk was important enough that he wanted my undivided attention. Nancy Rowe called you a gentle giant. She said he always expected the best of his students and was so encouraging with a subtle twinkle in his eye. I agree completely with that. Now some of the girls, Tammy Cottle, one of his best tennis players on the girls' side, says, I remember chipping the remaining ice off the skating rink in the early spring to get the nets up as soon as possible. Basically, we trained and played all through black fly season, March to October. We all had this habit of waving our rackets through the swarms of black flies. One of my opponents one time said, what's with this waving the rackets distraction strategy? Tammy said, yeah, that's it. Distraction strategy. She said it here, more like survival strategy. Sharon Morin Wedge says, I vividly recall one practice where Jim decided I need to work on my serve. At that practice, he said, the two of us have 3 goals. To stop jumping when you're serving, to fix your toss, and to serve a backhand grip and learn to serve a kick serve. He said, once you start practicing this new service motion, you can't go back to your bad habits. He proceeded to stand on my foot while I was serving. And then he laid down in front of me to prevent me from jumping during the service motion. He said, I practice it every day. It worked. Now, we're down to the last couple. This one, and actually, I think this would be a good time for her to come on. Lynn Nicholson, where's that? Over here. I'll read it as she's coming. So one summer many years ago, during our junior high years, my friend Tammy Call and I, is Tammy here, by the way? Tammy didn't make it, okay. My friend Tammy Call and I, come right over here, and decided we'd like to try playing tennis. We played nearly every day that summer, and we were starting to get the ball over the net once in a while with some decent rallies. One of those mornings, this man drove by in this blue Volvo and sort of slowed down and turned around. We thought he was a pervert. So he watched us for a bit, and then out onto the courts he came. He said, would you girls like to have some lessons? We loved that idea. That would be the first of hundreds of hours I would spend with him on those courts, perfecting forehand and backhand strokes, net games, positioning, serves, emptying and filling buckets and buckets of balls. So I loved playing on the Schenck high school tennis team with him as a coach and assisting him in the summer adult and children tennis lessons. As a result of that one summer morning many years ago, I had a summer job that brought me all the way through my college years and was later able to coach the high school tennis teams and carry over the many skills I had learned from him. And most importantly, I had a lifelong love of a sport. Thank you, Mr. Willard. You are so deserving of this honor, and we really don't think you're a pervert. It's hard to believe somebody would think that, Jim Willard. David Collingsworth, if he's awake, would you come down? As he's coming down, I'll start. Over 50 years ago, the tennis boom in East Millinocket began. I remember it well. There was no one more instrumental to the people's interest in tennis than Mr. Jim Willard. His dedication, time, and commitment to youngsters and adults was impressive. Mr. Willard's tennis lessons through the recreation department were influential in attracting eager new young players to the game. He motivated everyone, regardless of their talent, to be the best they could be. He was the first to be there and the last to leave the courts on those hot summer days. And he spent much of his own time driving many of us all over Eastern Maine to compete in tournaments, and occasionally scared the bejesus out of us with a fake car accident. He ran tennis tournaments in East Millinocket, and people from all over the state would come just because it was Jim running them. It was his influence, and out of respect for him, that the best players all around the state came. There was no better high school tennis coach than Jim Willard. He ran efficient, well-run practices that were fun and meant to bring out the best in his players. His teams were always at the top of the standings. I had the utmost respect for his game. He was a great volleyer. He had great backhand slice down the line and glided across the court on his toes. So quick for a big guy, hard to believe he played center. I often played with him so that I could improve my game. He was always accommodating, and he encouraged me to play with guys 4 and 5 years older so that I would get better. I played him often in high school and never was able to beat him. Until a few years later, when I was a little older and stronger and he was older. To this day, it's his top-notch integrity that I like to remember. He was gracious as a winner, and more so even when he lost. And I always played with his cardinal rule in mind, which was, when in doubt, the call goes to your opponent. Thank you, Mr. Willard, for teaching me the game of a lifetime, how to be a good opponent, and life skills. You are a true mentor and a friend. David Collins. This one comes from our present chairman of our school board. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today we gather to honor Jim Willard, someone who played a critical role in our community as a teacher and a tennis coach. The East Millinocket School Board is honored to share celebrations about Jim, who did not just teach, but inspired hundreds of students in the classroom as well as on the tennis courts. He came to Schenck in 1968 and enjoyed 30 years as an exceptional biology teacher. And in 1973, introduced a tennis program to our school. Jim did more than teach. He guided and encouraged students to become better versions of themselves. Imagine being a student who had never picked up a tennis racket and then experiencing such a great sport opportunity in our small town. This new sport quickly gained popularity with between 30 and 40 students, male and female, participating each year. Well done, sir. That's Marie Hernandez. I think I saw Jeremy DeVue in the audience too, right? Would the Lieutenant Colonel please come forward? You got your own? Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to tell Dr. Charette I've already brushed my teeth twice today. I don't know why I feel like I need to. And I'm trying to figure out why Mr. Willard didn't need reading glasses and I do. Proclamation, signed by Marie Hernandez, School Board Chair, Mark Jenkins, Superintendent, Justin Page, Principal, John Montgomery, Athletic Director, Clint Linscott, the First Selectman. Be it known to all gathered here today on July 12, 2025, to celebrate the induction of 5 new members to the Schenck Hall of Fame, and whereas Jim Willard was a beloved and devoted teacher at Schenck High School for 30 years, and Jim Willard brought his expertise and passion for tennis to East Millinocket, and whereas Jim Willard started the Schenck High School tennis program in 1973 and continued with it until 1996. And Jim Willard also taught both children and adults in the community the game of tennis. Be it known that from this day forward, the East Millinocket tennis courts will now be known as the James Willard Tennis Courts.
Mr. Willard, did you come up here, please? Judy? Where's Judy? You had to leave, oh no. Wait a minute, we're doing that. Jesus. Willard, you're right in behind. And roly-poly body wouldn't work in front. Okay, back to the story. I told you it was JMO's fault. I was taking around tickets for the banquet, and Paul was gonna go for Jim. He actually, I believe you nominated Jim in the first place, didn't you? Yeah. And I get there and he says to me, Davis, you know how Paul is. Davis, what's it gonna take to get Willard's name on those tennis courts? I didn't have any idea. I didn't know whether there was a policy. I didn't have any idea, but at that point, I said, I'll look into it. And with a lot of looking into it, it took a bit of jumping through some hoops, and that wasn't too long ago. We formed a committee. Paul and his wife, Lori, was a lot easier to work with than Paul. Barry got it. We spent an afternoon up there looking through every yearbook from 1973 to 1996, finding people that you had either in school or in tennis. We divided them up, called everybody, got them all to write letters, and we have a special presentation. What I did for you today was just little clips, other than the 2 full letters that I just read to you. There's a lot more. And we put it together in a memory book. So, camera person, she's still, there she is. the James Willard Memory Book. And you can get a clue. My wife and Louise were very instrumental in this. I'm not good at stuff like this at all, so they took over and did the whole thing. I did a lot of the calling, but they did the work. So give them credit. Thank you for all the hours. Why don't you come right in the middle, Fran? Maybe you can hold this and you can get a picture. There's some reading on the way home. Okay, that's part of the show. You saw the banner, and that's not a real appropriate thing to hang on a tennis court. What we didn't have time to do was actually come up with a plaque or some kind of designation for the tennis court that would be appropriate. And we really want to do something that is very meaningful. Those of you that came in after the brunch crowd got pamphlets that let you know that we're trying to raise some money to take care of that. And those of you that didn't, I'm telling you now, we would like any contributions, and it would go directly to coming up with something. Again, we have the committee, and the principal and the athletic director will be working with us as well. We're shopping around. We've got several different things that we're looking at, and we'll come up with something that'll be long-lasting and appropriate. If, by any chance, we make all kinds of extra money, by the way, that 50-50 money will go toward that. My wife and I haven't had a vacation in a long time. And since today is our 50th anniversary, and I can tell you very seriously, this is the best anniversary gift I could possibly get. Doing something like this for my lifelong friend, Jim Willard. I really appreciate it. I hope we're making him cry. Now, some of you were signed up for flowers from the tables in the kitchen that our good friend Robin had put together for us. They're on a table down there in the cafeteria. I think I have let everybody know if they were signed up. There's a list down there by the flowers. You, on your way out, if you want to take a trip down and get a vase, check off your name so I know who got them. I get to deliver all the rest, so please check them off. We've always been told in this too, we're sort of an aging population, and usually when older people sit for any length of time, when they get up, they leave phones and pocketbooks and everything behind. So please remember to check around your seats that you've got everything. I would like to thank everybody for coming. For the other inductees, I know this was heavy on Jim. We didn't think he'd be back down from North Pole for a while, so we figured we better do it while we had the chance. So thank you all for coming. Oh, I know what I was supposed to say. Jim and Fran are going to be over at Louise Scribner Fisk's Beach Street, first house on the left-hand side, yellow house, right across from the second school road over here. It's within walking distance of the school. If you haven't had a chance to visit with Jim and Fran, either in here or in the brunch room, and you want to go over for a little while, feel free to do that. I know tennis people, if you would like to have a picture with Jim, come on down here afterwards. Anybody else in the audience that wasn't in the brunch, if you want a picture with Jim and Fran, or just Jim, come on down and we'll run through that again. And all these pictures will be on Judy Fernald's Facebook page, and you can download it for free. So pictures from in there, pictures from in here. You also can sign up for a DVD of this whole thing. There are forms on the desk out there. That's donations, whatever you want to contribute. Put your name on, we'll get them to you. Make sure you put your phone number and your address. I think that's it, unless you've got something. Okay, I'm pretty pooped. Thank you, it's been fun. Oh, did Jim ever tell you the story about that fish? Do you want to? Thanks, folks.